All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this webinar on better alternatives to group policy options when it comes to mapping printers. I am here today with my colleague, Brock McKenna. He's from our pre-sales engineering team, spends most of his day working with customers when we're not making him present webinars like this one. And he'll take the next about 35 minutes or so to walk you through the alternatives for group policy objects, why there are better options, why those options, not surprisingly, come from us. And with that, take it away, Brock.
All right. So again, I'm Brock McKenna, pre-sales engineer with ThinPrint and Easy, and today we'll be talking about deploying printers via GPO and what are some better options. Briefly about us, we have 25 years of experience in print management for companies. We are globally positioned with more than 30,000 customers. Our projects range from 10 to 200,000 users. We have a strong focus on security and privacy. We're trusted by healthcare, finance, and governments. On the agenda, we'll talk about GPO and the challenges faced when mapping using GPOs, ThinPrint's approach to solve that, a live demo with printer distribution via ThinPrint AutoConnect, touch on what's new, and then a conclusion and Q&A session. So starting off, GPO and the challenges. GPO is a suitable option for the distribution of printers in your company, but it does face its disadvantages compared to alternatives, especially in larger environments. It can be restrictive, so it's limited to 80 groups for mapping. That will make it a bit difficult to configure with having to figure out what groups and who belongs to those groups for mapping those printers. You'll need to maintain those groups in your environment, which can be disadvantageous to ThinPrint. You will have some latency on login when having to copy over drivers, which GPOs can cause, and there are some security issues compared to ThinPrint when using GPOs for your print environment. Complex administration. So you'll need to have a comprehensive AD name and group schema in advance. So you're going to have to plan that out of what users are going to belong to what group that you're going to map your GPOs to. Once that's in place, you're going to need to track any changes to it and document any changes to it. So if you update any printers, you're going to have to replace or update the group that you replace the printer with. And then pushing the default printers is a bit of a hassle as well with GPOs. Another disadvantage is you have little flexibility. So you are limited to mapping to 80 objects. So that has no consideration to the employee's location that you're mapping to. So if you have remote offices or users that move around, you're going to have to either create a GPO that applies them when they log in and gives them all the printers, no matter what location they're at, or you'll create service desk tickets by having to have them create a ticket when they get to the new location, give them the correct printer. If you do decide to just give the user all the printers, and when they trigger those GPO rules, they're going to have those printers for different locations. So you're going to risk sensitive information being printed at a wrong location. So they could select the wrong printer, print something out that shouldn't be, and that's going to be at a different office and could fall into the wrong hands at that other office. There's also another disadvantage being significantly slower login time. So when executing printer assignments via GPO on the client side, it is time consuming. The server's going to need to be contacted, printers need to be filtered, and then drivers may have to be copied via the network, which usually after Print Nightmare and Microsoft's new policy is going to require extended writes, which with ThinPrint is not an issue because we do not copy drivers over to wherever the user is working, whether that be an AVD, VMware session, Citrix host, traditional RDS, or a FAT client. We're not going to copy drivers. We attach a virtual image of the driver to the ThinPrint output gateway, which solves not only the slower login time, but also print spool or crashing. So no drivers being copied. You're going to have less tickets and issues with printing. So at ThinPrint, our approach, we believe in central administration. We offer a simple configuration to do that with a user-friendly GUI. We can push default printers, and we also reduce login times. So with mapping printers to users using ThinPrint AutoConnect, there's generally two options we see most. There's rule-based connection of local printers. So that's going to be users connecting into a session such as a terminal server, virtual desktop, Citrix server, AVD, where they have printers that aren't managed by a print server. So we have what's called a ThinPrint client, which gets installed locally and will redirect any USB printers or printers that you don't have access to as an admin. And then we also have rule-based connection of printers from a print server. So users working locally on workstations, terminal servers, VMware desktops, Citrix hosts, again, we can map them printers from that and centrally manage it all from a print server or multiple print servers if you choose to do high availability, which we offer. So starting off, we have printer mapping from a print server. So this is dynamic mapping depending on AD groups, IP ranges, and client names. So if a user is working on a host, a session, they're not working locally, we can use the connecting client's IP range as well as the client name to provide location-based mapping. And then we can also leverage AD affiliations as well to mix and match all those rules. So we see this a lot for users that are moving branch to branch a lot, or in healthcare, where doctors and nurses are switching floors and in different rooms with different patients and need to have the correct printer when they hit the next floor they're on, a room in the session that they're joining in. So if you have a client naming scheme or a subnetted floor or building, we can leverage that when a user logs in to give them the correct printer once they hit the session. For printer mapping from a ThinPrint client, I touched on this. This is for redirection of printers that are not part of your print server environment. So connection of home office printers, USB printers that are connected to workstations locally. You can use our ThinPrint client to redirect that securely into the session. And this allows an admin to exclude unapproved printers. So you can turn off native redirection offered by Citrix, by Microsoft's printer redirection, and just use ThinPrint to manage who is allowed to bring printers into your sessions. So this is provides more secure to your who's printing what documents and where they're printing them. We can also set the default printer. So this can either be pushed by the admin or user selected. What that means is we can push it with the group of printers you select one of the printers, make it their default on login, or as an admin, you can allow users select it. And if the user selects it, we can store what they've changed to either the default printer, or if they've changed printer properties, we can save that either to a central location or to their user profile so that those changes will be saved next time they log in. We also offer a dedicated application called ThinPrint Self-Service. This is where users choose their printers themselves. So they'll log in, then if they went to devices and printers, they wouldn't have any printers. All they would have is to go to the start menu, select ThinPrint Self-Service, and from there, they can choose the printer they want. You can limit this printer pool or make it fully available. So you can make them have only a few printers to choose from, or you can have them choose from the whole environment. And then you can also apply this self-service only to a selected subset of users and still map other users, the printers, how we touched on earlier, directly to their devices and printers if this doesn't work for all of your users. So moving on, we'll be having a live demo. I'll start off with connecting into my print server with ThinPrint Engine configured in a highly available environment. Briefly touch on the rules there and some features of ThinPrint, and then I'll log in as a user, both mapping directly to them and then mapping to the self-service app to show you the difference between the two. So here I've logged into my print server and I have the ThinPrint engine. This is what allows admins to centrally manage their print environment. I'll start off with vLayer. This is our technology to virtualize your print drivers. So as you can see here, I have multiple printers that have already been vLayered. So the _n represents the native queue. That is the native driver that is installed on the print server and will stay on the print server. And then the output gateway printer object is what will get mapped to the user. So they won't see the _n and they won't have the native driver copied over. They'll still have the properties of all the drivers. They just will not have to have that installed directly and for them to use it. it's as easy as just come in here. You can multi-select, enable VLayer, and you'll see it'll enable VLayer for this printer, and it'll create a second queue. So if you were to watch print management and I printed to the secure release printer, it would leave that queue and render in the native. Some other options here, we have the ThinPrint LPD I'll touch on later. That's high availability for backend printing solutions. The Hub Cloud Management is used to remotely manage what's called our ThinPrint Hub. So ThinPrint Hub is generally used to replace local print servers for centralized environments. It can eliminate VPNs, so you won't have to have a connection between your local sites and your print servers. You can also use it to provide compression and encryption from the print server down to that ThinPrint Hub. So it just sits on the network, picks up any printers, and it receives compressed encrypted print data, decompresses that, decrypts it, and routes it to the correct printer. In the Hub Cloud Management, what that allows you to do is not have to remote into the site or ask somebody to touch those hubs for you. You can do it all from this central GUI. AutoConnect is what's used to map your users, your printers. So we'll start off with our groups. The first ones I have here are the subnet groups. So this allows an admin to make rules easier when we get to that step. So if you have different floors or different branch offices or locations that you want to apply users to log in, printers when they log in, then you can, instead of having to create a rule for each IP, you can group subnets together to make your rules easier to create. Then down here, you'll come to printer groups, and you will group printers together. So whoever gets what printers. Here I have sales, marketing, accounting, and the main office printer. So in the sales group for the rule the group I've already created, anybody in the sales group will be getting from our HA cluster. So I have 2 print servers. Our HA just needs to be more than 1 print server. There's no limit to how many you can have in an HA cluster, and they just need to have the same printers installed as well as the same operating system. And you can see here that I have the sales color HP LaserJet, I have the black and white, and I have the marketing Konica for this group. And I will be pushing the default as the black and white. So when a user logs in, they will get these 3 printers, and their default will be the black and white. Once you have your printer groups that you want created, the next thing will be to create rules for who gets what printers. So I've already created one rule here. What this rule is, I'm pushing the default printer from whatever group I've selected. Any user from the sales security group that is connecting from the floor 1 subnet will get the group of sales printers. If I wanted to add more rules, I just come in here, can insert below. I can create another one for marketing. So anybody that's connecting from marketing, and then they're connecting from the Denver office, will get the group of marketing printers. And then here I need to publish, because this is writing to a SQLite database file. So any changes there need to be made so that when the user logs in, it'll check against that file and then know the correct rules. So this allows you to onboard new printers or users rather easily. I can also make an all wildcards rule where anybody connecting from anywhere to the session will get the main office printer. So I'll go ahead and publish that. Touching on some other features, I already mentioned HA and that we offer that. This can be either set to load balancing or failover. You can see, you can check the health of your server. We're also running what's called the ThinPrint Spooler Watchdog at all times on all the print servers. So this is checking the health of your servers. And we are also, the RPC calls are being done from where the user's working, so whatever their session host may be, to check on the health of the server. If it doesn't hear back, it's just going to automatically map from the healthy server in the back end. So none of the users are going to have to do anything. No help desk tickets are going to be created, and you can troubleshoot your issues without having to also fix printers at the same time. There's also the ability to, as an admin, come in here and change the service to maintenance mode. So if you wanted to manually update or patch a server and you needed to make some changes, do a reboot, you could come in and all you'd have to do is set this to maintenance mode. And then from there, the printers would be remap in the back end, no user intervention or admin intervention on the actual workstations or servers, and they will have healthy printers while you do your updates to your environment. Port Manager is used to alongside the hub generally. We also have a software version to compress and encrypt print jobs from the print server to the wherever the print job is going to be routed to, either a hub or a client, ThinPrint client. So you can add your certs here and add certs to the hub, or if you wanted to keep your local print servers, do that as well. And that's how we compress and keep everything encrypted in transit. Over here, just wanted to touch on the settings of AutoConnect. So as I mentioned, there's a central database file that houses all the rules. So this is where all the servers or your workstations are going to point if you're mapping to FAT clients. And when a user logs in, it's going to check against that file, see what rules they match, and then map the users the correct printer. The preferences can be stored wherever you like them to be stored. So that's if a user changes their default, changes any printer properties, we can save those changes. Under printer creation, we can do self-service. I'll show you that. So that's when that doesn't map to their devices and printers. It maps directly to their self-service app. The dynamic printer matrix is for redirection. So you can turn that on or off. If you want to use ThinPrint for redirection, you can use us. And instead of using, Microsoft redirection, Citrix, whatever you're using, VMware, we can have no influence on the default printer. We can define the default printer and then just rules on who's it set by, what has priority on login. And you can set the printers to inherit our paper size, our properties, things like that. And then just some high availability settings and how often to check. So moving on from that, I'll go ahead and log into my first server. So my first server will be a user that is just getting mapped printers directly to devices and printers, so they're not using the self-service app. So this is an admin pushing them a set of printers instead of allowing them to select what printers they are going to pick out. So as you can see here, the group of printers was added. So I have a sales, they all look the same as they normally would to a user. If they go to file and print, it's going to be the same. They can, if you allow them, change the properties so it'll look the same. The preferences look a tad different, but you can still see they get their gray color, portrait, landscape, finishing options are all available with the ThinPrint driver. And the user, from a user's perspective, is going to have the same day-to-day as they would with normal printings, but this would all just be back-end managed by the IT admin. So now moving on to the self-service, just to show you the difference. So you'll see I went to start and opened up the ThinPrint self-service app. This will show the printers that they've had or had before, and then they can come through and pick through the printers they want. So on these printers, these can either all be pushed and be available, or you can break them down into groups here and go ahead and they can add this printer. So if they come in here, they apply, that will add the printer to their workstation and will become available in devices and printers. And as I touched on earlier, the properties are all going to be there. They will have whatever you allow them to have, and the preferences can be set and pushed by the admin, or you can have the users change them, and we can store those settings. So jumping back to the PowerPoint, what's new? I touched on high availability earlier. This is a little bit different scenario. This is high availability for printing from the backend. So what I touched on earlier is for Windows environments where we can install the ThinPrint engine. With the high availability for backend, it's more for ERP, EMR systems. We can provide a static name for those systems, and instead of remapping to that system, we can sit in between it and route the print job that sends out the backend to a healthy server. So we're doing health checks between the servers. We can, when we receive the print job, know what server is healthy and route the job there. We allow static names. So if you just need to keep one static name in your environment, we can do that. We can whitelist permitted printers as well as approved clients for security. So we can also take jobs that come to our print server, render them, encrypt them, compress them, and then either route them locally to a local area network printer. Or if you have a network that's more of a wide area network or that's not on a VPN or anything like that, we can compress, encrypt that, and then route it to the ThinPrint hub or a ThinPrint client, and then decompress, decrypt, and route to the correct printer at a remote location. And this is also a scalable solution. It's not limited to print servers. There's a lot of print servers that can be inside of a cluster for this backend printing. So in conclusion, ThinPrint gives you a central controlled mapping rules, more flexible assignment than GPOs. You have a clear GUI. You can be configured according to your employee requirements, and it's a scalable solution for all company sizes, and it's going to eliminate help desk tickets and stress on your admins and allow you to have a more clean and functioning environment. And we do offer free individual consultation appointments to review your environment and see how it can be done better with ThinPrint.
Thank you, Brock. I appreciate it. Thanks for walking us through all of this. I see there's a couple of questions, but since Brock put forth the offer to talk with you all individually, I would say take him up on that offer. We're trying to keep these kind of concise in the interest of everybody's time being valuable. So please do reach out. The QR code, if that's easier, points to the same link that's on Brock's slide here. That said, thank you all very much. Thank you for your time today. Hopefully you found this as interesting, as useful as we usually find this with our customers. And like I said, do feel free to reach out and have a wonderful day.